Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Derek and Logan.
Hello, and welcome to episode 83.2 of Flesh and Pod. Since we 0.7, whatever, this is the second time and almost third time really that we've tried to record this episode. So now we're recording on the 4th of July with explosions going off in the background because we live in America and the way we celebrate anything here is to just blow shit up. So I am your host, Logan, and with me as always is the true patriot, Derek Oswald. And also joining us today is a noted friend of the podcast, even though he doesn't actually listen to it. And all around great human and very, very underrated deck builder within Flesh and Blood, Mike Toryck, aka I'm just gonna speed through these, aka Nick Bolas, aka Flexi Lexi, aka Neon Shorts Douchebag, aka NoControl, aka Weird Do.
It kind of loses its lust after the second time.
The best one is still aka Buttcock.
Buttcock that is why it's still my Discord name in some servers.
It's just Buttcock, which we did discuss in the first recording of this. Apparently, you can find that in a Walgreens feminine hygiene aisle. We just it loses a little luster when we don't have context anymore, but it's still very funny.
This whole episode's going to be like, man, we could have.
We could, yeah. Like
this was a really good episode. Should have been there.
Should have been there. If only would have done it live. Oh my god, you gotta be fucking kidding. But we're gonna kind of jump in a little bit. I already know what everybody did in Flesh and Blood this week, which was fuck all for Derek, fuck all for Mike, and then I just played an armory.
I started messing with Prism a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I spoiled a card for Dusk Till Dawn. Yeah, roll your eyes.
You're going to run the bit again?
Okay. Absolutely.
A third fucking time. All right,
everybody
go
knows,
for it, buddy.
Everybody knows that I am a known assassin simp. I am the assassin king. And if you're going to give anybody an assassin card to spoil, it's me. And so I am happy to announce that in Dusk Till Dawn, you have the ability to open surgical extraction. Take it to the bank. You're welcome.
Ship it. Yeah, I guess. Jesus Christ. Well, we do have, I guess the bright side of this, the first one being tits up is we do have the entire spoiler for Dusk Till Dawn in front of us now. So we can walk into this with perfect information. Yes, and by perfect, I mean just the way we can evaluate cards, I guess.
There was some sick stuff that occurred overnight, though.
There were. Quite honestly, I think that the generics that got in there were at least interesting, if nothing else.
Censor
is really hilarious.
Interesting, yeah.
So, but what we're gonna do is each of us is going to take 3 cards and we're going to run through them and talk about them, just why we want to talk about them and what we think about them as we go forward in this new meta. I think what we should do first off, though, is we're going to invert this a little bit. We're going to talk the banned and suspended announcement since we got that. So we have that context to talk about the cards that we got. So the banned and suspended announcement actually happened. We can talk about it. Holy fuck! Like,
yeah,
it's actually good you have me on too.
right. This actually happened. Yeah. So it turns out that they did make some changes, which was a little. I was actually kind of surprised. And they banned bullseye bracers in Classic Constructed. And then because Vinset exists, and this makes sense for them to do this because Vinset exists, Bloodsea Skeleta went from suspended until Visceri leaves to just banned.
I had a feeling that was coming.
Since we have Flexi Lexi on the show, walk us through this bullseye bracers ban and what it means for Ranger in general.
Okay, so it basically takes our get out of jail free card away, because that's what bracers is, at least to me, and I'm assuming to a lot of other Lexis, where you might have a turn where like you're short 1 resource, or you just need one more way to load to get that ridiculous turn off. And bracers always enabled that. So and also the arcane the arcane barrier on it was very relevant in matchups. So I'm assuming we're going to be running shock charmers or what's the
Hornet Sting? Is that
Hornet Sting? Yeah, Hornet Sting's the other one. But yeah, no, this is going to impact Lexi quite a bit. It's going to make our assassin matchup considerably worse. It's going to make our Dromai matchup considerably worse. It brings us down to earth a bit. I don't think we're the best deck anymore.
Let me ask you a question that's been on my mind since I saw it, which is with Vincent potentially entering the realm of, relevancy, is the arcane barrier also perhaps the biggest part? Because one of the things that I think was under talked about with Ranger is that they were running AB1 almost all the time anyway.
AB1
so
was
I think
free.
that also, I think that also hurt decks like Briar, for example, maybe even Viscerai, but now with Vincent coming in. And so granted, you can
that
still
forces us to run null runes, essentially.
Right. I was going to say you can still put AB in, but it's like at the cost of an actual slot now. So how much does that impact things?
We lose. So against an AB hero or against a Rune Chant hero, we're losing Snapdragons and we're losing Bullseyes essentially, because you have to run the null rune boots in that matchup. Yeah, that's all there is to it.
Or do you just run like null rune gloves to keep the snaps?
I guess you could run gloves because you're not doing bracers anymore. I didn't even think about that, but yeah.
I mean, it's an obvious downgrade though, right? Because you went from AB with an activation potentially to nothing. But that's something that's been on my mind as I was looking at why they would target this. I thought the explanation that we got from them was also, very nice to go through the reasoning of not wanting to overhit and target certain things, etc. But the arcane barrier with another rune blade entering the mix was something that I've been thinking about quite a bit, especially when it's so rune chant centric, right? So Viscerai's been struggling, and now we're entering a different flavor, and perhaps arguably the best deck in the format got AB1 essentially for free. So I think this was a big reason why this was targeted.
There's also just the Azalea impact is kind of big too. There were some versions of Azalea that were already just playing Hornet Sting, but I think those are the Sandscour versions, if I remember correctly. Yeah. But being able to just slot in the free AB, right? Like we talked, like you guys pointed that out, that makes a big difference where it's just free, and now it comes at a cost. So that I've heard, and I don't know if I agree with it because I don't know enough. But I've heard a lot of people say that this hurts Azalea way more than it hurts Lexi. I don't know if that's true. I think it hurts both of them.
I think that's crazy talk, honestly. But
you know who it hurts the most?
Riptide?
All honesty, Riptide.
Yeah.
It hurts his feelings because poor dude wasn't even mentioned in the article.
No, didn't even get a line in the article. The other Ranger, Azalea, and it's like, poor guy. I'm a Ranger too.
I think as expected, you're going to have these people over here that are screaming, Ranger is literally unplayable again. I cannot even queue with it into my armory. And then you have the other end where people are going, you did nothing. I can't believe you would do that. And
the truth is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it always is. Right.
I don't know if I think that if I were to, in a vacuum, pick whatever the best deck was going to be for week 1 of the new meta, I would probably still say it's Lexi, honestly. No. But I think that that's because the other decks that are going to be possible now with Dusk Till Dawn are going to be unrefined, because typically it's the old Magic thing where week 1 meta play aggro, like straight up. That's just what you do. Then you kind of look into like week 1 of Outsiders meta was at the Realm event in Chicago. And there was, Redline Azuri and Rangers Abound. And it was a very heavy aggro field.
I know that I'm an unabashed simp, and I get that this is going to sound full bias, but I actually think this might be the best meta for my 2 favorite heroes going into
Bravo and Azuri.
Going into this unknown field. Yeah, I think Bravo and Azuri are both very well positioned. The assassin matchup into both Lexi and Azalea just got better, But the reason that I'm looking at those two in particular as also potential winners is if you get a bunch of people trying to play around with this new Herald Prism, having classes that have access to a bunch of poppers is very helpful. Bravo obviously has a ton. Azuri, because of the bait and switch of her kind of feel, I think can run enough. It's not going to be like a huge critical mass, but can run enough to be competitive. You already had to do that for your Dromai matchup anyway. And I also think with Oldhim Living Legend out, you're going to have another round of folks that try to really tune into aggro. So I think we're going to see people try Fi, maybe even try Katsu. We've kind of seen that popping up. I think Bravo does well into them as well. Uzuri, maybe not so much, especially into like hyper aggro Fi. But I know that I am biased here, but I think that both of them would be fair calls kind of going into the unknown. And now, as far as heroes that I'm not familiar with myself, like I've played against them a bunch, but don't have a lot of time piloting. I also, this might be a bit of a hot take, but I think Icelander is going to rise back up quite a bit as well because of if Lexi falls in popularity and because of the lack of the free AB, I think Icelander is going to be well positioned to take advantage of things.
I personally think Azuri's going to be probably the best deck up until maybe like a month after Dusk Till Dawn.
I think there's definitely a potential that there's room for Vincent to be that deck. You see people that are already doing pre-builds that are popping off for 30 to 50 damage turns.
Oh, yeah.
And that's like a lot. Don't know if you knew that. But it seems like, those are the glass cannon builds, which are typically not going to be the things that win tournaments. It's just, okay, what's the flashiest thing we can do? Whittle it down to something consistent. But right now people are doing those flashy things and it's like, Jesus Christ, that's a lot. Do I think that that's automatically, the best deck? No, I don't. Do I think that there's room for it? And right now there's room for everything right now. There's room for Jello, for fuck's sake. I mean, we can just, and there's always room for Jello, but right now it's one of those super simple things where I feel like we are going back into a wide open meta, and that's the best that this game feels, is when we're in a wide open meta. What else do we got going? Oh, right. Dusk Till Dawn spoilers. I forgot that
we were about to talk about our 3. We just wanted to cover the ban and restricted. Ban and suspended, excuse me.
BS announcement, sir. Mikey, I know that we've seen some changes. What do you got on deck for me here? Did these change at all with the cards that you saw?
Well, I mean, we got a few cool cards that got released overnight. We got this Mischievous Meeps card, which is really interesting.
Well, I just think it's funny.
It is pretty funny.
The anti-dash tech.
Right. Like, it's just funny. But for your 3 cards, are you still in the same spot you were before?
Yeah, so obviously I think that the Lexi card that we are getting, the specialization, is a banger. It's going to allow on hits a lot more easy for ice builds. I personally think that an ice build is possible with this card.
So you're talking about Call Down the Lightning, right?
Yeah, Call Down the Lightning. I'm sorry, I was trying to friggin' find the name and I couldn't find it.
No problem.
Yeah, so it also has a very relevant unity effect, right? So it's going to also get you a lightning if you block.
If you have to block.
A go again. Yeah, a go again, but you have to block with 2 cards.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Not Lexi. But I think this being a 0 for which could possibly be, 4 or 5 damage with relevant on hits is probably good enough, right? Like,
yeah, obviously, you know, zero for anything greater than 4 is what you're shooting for in Lexi, and as long as you get that, you're pretty good.
Yeah, now you are going to be pairing this with shock charmers too.
Likely, yeah. I mean, we don't have anything else to run, so.
I mean, granted, you don't. You could always run Goliath Gauntlet. That's legal. But you're not. That doesn't do shit. So I wouldn't recommend it.
So I don't even like it. So ice builds are very good into a very aggro meta, which we might be approaching. So it might be possible that an ice type Lexi is very relevant coming until Dusk Till Dawn, and it's going to run like 90% cards that haven't like been played in a year.
Right.
But when an aggro meta comes, that's something that you really have to think about. It's the only ice hero. Oh no, you got Islander too.
There's Icelander. Yeah, we're fine there.
I got a hot take here. Gambler's gloves to replace your bracers, because with some of the brute love that we got, you might want to re-roll your opponent's scab.
So you put it in the side for the brute matchup that I'm already winning.
Right. Just the brute matchup that you're already favored in sounds good.
Yeah.
Just make that 78% or an 84%er.
Favored. They got a lot of interesting tools, and I don't.
Yeah, I actually don't know anymore. We'll see.
As it used to be.
We'll see.
Specifically Levia. What was your second card, Mikey?
Yes. So we're gonna go with the Scowling Flesh Bag. Speaking about brutes, so when the card defends, you're gonna intimidate, and that intimidate effect is going to be a minimum 4 in most matchups you're looking at. So it's a 6-point equipment at minimum, which is good. But obviously you have the huge top side of just blowing up your opponent's turn if you use it the right way, right?
It's amazing anti-aggro piece. It just takes that piece out of there. My wife, by the way, was looking at my show notes and she saw the card text here. She looked at it and she's like, "Is that just an angry nutsack?" And I'm like, no notes. I mean, kinda, I guess. He very well could have a Scowling Fleshbag. I don't know. I think this one's interesting. I do think it's a sideboard card. In a lot of instances, because against your guardians and stuff like that, your go big type of decks, it doesn't do much. It blocks for 2 once, and you have better options elsewhere potentially. But this is so good into aggro. Like, it shores up some of the worst things for brute, which is super important.
Yeah, I keep calling it stalagmite for men. Right?
The fuck?
Like you know how you always hear those like blow commercials where it's like it's literally brute for men. But brute is already the class. So in my head I'm like, it's stalagmite for men.
That's what the fuck ever, dude. Like, I don't know. I've always been an Old Spice person. I'm not much into brute, but okay.
I don't know.
I got nothing. Mikey, what's your third?
Do you think brutes use X?
I hear sometimes Bolton does.
Yeah, he's broy enough, I guess.
Anyway, we got Levia redeemed as our final card. Now, we had literally like a 30-minute discussion on this card
because I'm gonna make you do it again.
Logan did not understand it.
I 100% could not read this card and make sense of it.
In the show notes, literally, it says, "Can someone explain Levia redeemed to me?"
I didn't get it. Like, I just read it over and over again. I'm like, well, what the fuck does this even do?
And also, how do you flip it?
Why does it have 2 sides? Like, this doesn't make any sense. So go on, make me look like a freaking idiot again. I mean, I do it well enough on my own. I don't really need that much help, but
okay. So either we are using this from our sideboard and slamming it on our hero to gain health and lose blood debt, or we are using it as a machine gun to slam as many blood debt cards on the field at the same time as we can. And to have that flexibility of either going for the throat or playing a more defensive style where you're trying not to just die to blood debt, it's going to be a really good card. And you don't even have to put it in your deck. You have to put it in your sideboard.
Yeah, I mean, that's still, I think, the most standout important piece to me is the fact that this card takes up 1 slot in your inventory and already is incredibly flexible. It has 2 uses. You don't even have to go into either mode. It's an opt into it if the situation presents itself, warrants itself, etc. And both sides are for different game plans. So the one side, again, you're turning off your blood debt. That's likely for those long grindy matchups where somebody's either trying to fatigue you or they're just trying to set it up so that you don't have a way to turn off your blood debt and then you would die. Now, the fact that you can't even put that into play until you have a ton of blood debt anyway tells you that you would probably die if that happened. So this is a nice way to save yourself, even if you don't gain the health. You know, I said when we recorded this the first time, there will be situations where you have exactly 8 health, or you might even have 9 or 10, but it might still be the right play to go down to 8, put in Levia Redeemed, because if you think your opponent is going to turn off your ability to turn off your own blood debt, you just lose at that point. On the other side, that's usually, I think, going to be your aggressive one, where you've played a bunch of cards into your blood debt. You purposefully don't take the blood debt and turn it off. Instead, you take the damage, go down to 13, and then you put that in, and now you start unloading the cards that you just put into blood debt on purpose as additional cards. You kind of become like Soul Shackled Chain, but you got to preload and see what's in your blood debt ahead of time, right? So like that's what
you gotta work
Plasma
to get to
version.
a base character.
Yeah. but I mean, yes, you have to work to get there, but it's also, again, one of those things where you can just stick to your normal game plan as well. I just really like the flexibility of this card. It's so much fun.
Sorry. I don't know. Like, I hear everything you're saying, and I do understand how the card works now. So like, let's clear that hurdle, because that was a hurdle.
Mm-hmm.
I do get how the card works. The Plasmofet side, which, you know, is 13 health, 4 intellect. Neither of these is like a go again like mechanic, or like doesn't have go again attached to the action that makes them your hero. Isn't
there a generic that just makes something go again?
Well, so you have a lot of options here, right? Like you can run Scab Skins and roll and get action points. You could do Time Snap Potion as well. There are again, I don't know, because this is new, right? So like I don't know if this counts as like a non-attack action when you activate this or not. So I don't even know if something like Mage Mask
it might not even
work.
like count. Yeah,
but I do know that Brute of all the classes has a lot of ways to give you action points.
So Levia Redeemed is an action. Plasmofet Levia Consumed is not an action. So one is a trigger, because it happens when your blood debt hits, so you want to be able to use it right away anyway.
It's not an action because it only happens when you're taking blood debt. That's already happening in the cleanup of the turn. So like you can't take an action there. It's just like a triggered effect.
Yeah, because there's no priority in the end phase where blood debt's happening. So,
but for the Levia Redeemed part, like I'm okay with that being an action, because again, if it's one of these like grindy games and somebody is trying to kill you with blood debt, a lot of times they try to present so much damage that you're dead if you don't block with all 4 cards, or you can not block and then, or you could block with all 4 cards, but then you like die to blood debt. You know what I mean? So like it's either you die to damage because you didn't use all 4 cards, or you die to blood debt. So this gives you an out where you can 4-card block, and then for your 1 action per turn, you're like, oh, by the way, I don't worry about blood debt for the rest of the game.
You're no longer randomly checkmated at the end of the game.
Right.
Yeah. And it turns all the cards in your Banished Zone face down anyway. So the blood debt is double irrelevant there.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have to refresh your Banished Zone with stuff you can play, or just, if your graveyard's big enough, just start playing above rate Shadow Brute attacks again. To try to turn a corner. So that makes sense. Like, I get it. It does hinder a game plan into Levia. There are some cards, I believe, in this set, specifically our good friend and mentor, really, Tommy Dong's preview card, which was a defense reaction. What was it called? Oh, Expendable Limbs. which was the 0 block 4 Shadow Brute defense reaction. As an additional cost to play this, banish a random card from your hand. If it's 6 or more, you can play it from your banish zone during your next action phase. That feels real good with Levia redeemed out. So that just gets there and like basically draws you a card with her going. So there's a lot of options, a lot of help in here, I think, and that's pretty fantastic. Not gonna lie. I would love to see how this is all going to really play out with Levia, if there's enough support to make her differently better. Because I don't think it's the same game plan anymore, but we'll have to see. I'm not so sure. Derek, you're up. I guess go talk about the police.
All right, so this is pretty straightforward. My favorite 3 cards from Dusk Till Dawn are the brand new, never seen before Surgical Extraction, Crown of Providence, and War-Tune Herald.
I fucking hate you right now. Like, I really dislike.
Sorry,
you.
Now that we have the full spoiler and we are no longer
there's 3 reprints.
Yeah, we know there's at least 3 reprints. I have to do that bit now. This is what happens when the podcast gets delayed due to technical difficulties. Okay. So, listen, Surgical Extraction is on there because it's the only assassin card in the set because of printing issues, but we're not going to count that. So instead, we're going to go to my other love, and that is Bravo. I know that this was one of the very first reveals, and so some people might have forgotten that that's even coming in this set, but for me, Starstruck still stands out as an incredibly playable card. If we do get a bit of an aggro summer, as people were joking about, it's a very relevant effect on the crush. Because it has that big 10 attack, it's still a very relevant popper. We've already seen some more of the old illusionist effects, popping up in this set about making your attacks 1 less attack so that they're no longer able to stop your heralds, for example. Starstruck doesn't care. You're going to have to play 5 of those on 1 card to get me from stopping your shenanigans. So it's very relevant in that regard. It still has the 3 block. Big 10 attack. It's exactly at 7. So much like with Crippling Crush, you can still do the dominate, get it in. Very good against aggressive decks. And it's not like Bravo needed the help in that matchup, but you'll always take more. There were several metas where you used to run like Righteous Cleansing, for example, because of just needing a big attack, but also needing that additional popper or so forth. I think Starstruck will replace that in a lot of lists when that meta dictates it, but I could see this being used even outside of aggressive matchups because there's still some relevancy. I just love this card.
So quick question here. What's a better Guardian card? Starstruck or Warmonger's Diplomacy?
I'm always going to go with Starstruck because I don't play Guardian like most people.
But 0 for 3...
I
fuck up an aggro turn is pretty good.
All right, so here's the problem that I have though, right? I have a choice between Warmonger's Diplomacy, which is, as you said, it's a 0 cost. It does also block for 3 and it pitches for 3. So normally it checks a bunch of boxes, but the 0 cost hurts because it doesn't let you activate your hammer. Okay. The other bit is this is an action that doesn't have go again. So this is if you're already just like blocking a bunch and then this is just your play. If I have my choice, I would rather be in control of the tempo. And so I would still fuck up your aggro turn by also having done 10 to you with a crush effect. And then your turn is still garbage anyway. So if I have my choice, I'm dominating Starstruck over Diplomacy. I'm not saying Diplomacy won't have uses. It's obviously a really cheeky card.
It's a UPF card.
I just... if you're saying like what's the better one, like I'm going to go with Starstruck here, man. And Starstruck, unlike Warmonger's Diplomacy, is also a very good Shiana card. So,
there you go. Now you're speaking my language.
Now I've got you sold.
Yes, I am sold on Starstruck being amazing, insane. For those who don't know, Warmonger's Diplomacy is generic 0 cost blue pitch block 3. Starting with the hero to your left, each hero chooses War or Peace. If they choose War, the only actions they may play or activate during their next turn are weapon and attack actions. If they choose Peace, the only actions they play or activate during their next turn are non-weapon, non-attack actions. So this is something that is out there to kind of like strand those half and half hands of decks that want to do both. Which is, your Vinsets of the world, your Rune Blades of the world really in general. And also like your Dorinthias of the world.
I was just gonna say, or like new Bolton, because I have a strong suspicion.
Yeah.
It feels,
the
more you think about it, the more it feels like there's like a fair amount of use for this card.
There is. Yeah, it's a UPF card in that it's designed to affect the table, but at the same time they built it in a way that is flexible enough to have use in CC and Blitz, which I think is really good. It's a very good design, honestly. That, and I do also just love Poison the Well because it's one of my like absolute favorite hardcore bands from back in the day. So there's a few of these that are really good with like the little hints in there of like there's Ode to Demolition and Ode to Legion of Doom, which are just tag team wrestling factions from, you know, the era that I believe James was probably watching more wrestling. So, or tribute, not Ode, but tribute to Legion of Doom and tribute to Demolition are just literally like Easter eggs for wrestling fans, which is awesome.
I told Brian when we saw those that I'm waiting for the tribute to Rock and Sock
connection. Yeah. Sure. But what's your second card, Derek?
All right, my second card is a bit of a controversial one, but it's one that I think needs some love. Is Iron Song Versus, because I really like what this is doing for Warrior. And the first time we recorded this, I was saying that I thought it was very helpful specifically for Dorinthia on her off turns when you know you're not going to get 2 swings. But the more I think about it, the more I also think that it's very good for mid-range Bolton. So whether that's Raiden or if you're trying to use the new Beaming Blade tech, anytime where you are still just going to swing once. So the reason that I like this is because it makes the courage token when your next sword attack hits. And the important piece to remember about courage tokens, now that we know what they do, is they are an aura that buffs your next attack with +1, but it hangs around, right? It's just like when you make your embodiment of lightning, right? If you don't use it that turn, it sticks around until you get to use it. And this is very similar, where that courage token will stick around until you can take advantage of it. So a Dorinthia, you might have like a 2-card hand or whatever. So maybe it's a blue pitch or even a yellow pitch, and you're just swinging with the Dawn Blade, right? Because you had to block. Well, you can throw a little extra juice on it. And where, you would compare this with, say, like Braveforge bracers, you would never get that value from the Braveforge. Whereas with this, now if it connects, you get that courage token so that next turn it helps with those break points. And those break points are very important in Warrior. Similarly with Bolton, he has a lot of things that say, like, if this hits, do X. So the courage tokens for him matter for those break points. And again, if you're only swinging Raiden or the new Beaming Blade anyway, then you don't care about Braveforge bracers. You're never getting that second attack. Your entire thing is a mid-range game plan where it's like block with 2 cards, 0 attack with go again, that maybe has charge, and then you swing with your blade. So I think that Iron Song Versus is very good, and it's a good alternative to the existing bracers. I think that we're going to see it get some love. It reminds me a lot of when Van Braces was revealed, where a lot of people were like not high on it, but I said, hey, there's some situational uses for this, and then we saw it kind of pop up. I don't think that this is going to like change the Warrior game plan by a large stretch, but I think that this is good enough to warrant consideration in a few different decks.
Yeah, so as a Kasai player, I just need to weigh in here. This is dog water in that deck. This is I went to Dollar General to buy my Braveforge bracers, and all they had was Iron Song Versus.
Here's the problem, though. Kasai isn't an actual warrior, and I'll die on this hill. Kasai is a dual-wielding barbarian, but we don't have a barbarian class, so she's just considered a warrior.
No, Kasai is a warrior, and Dorinthia and Bolton are just illusionists. So she's the only real warrior. That's the problem is
Bolton is actually more like a paladin, and it shows, because paladins, if you ever try to play them, are like kind of garbage if you don't have perfect stats, and Bolton feels that way sometimes, where like if everything goes your way, it's great, but your average paladin's not going to have a good time.
Okay, sure. Yeah, Bolton is trash paladin. That makes total sense to me. Oh boy, what's your third? Mike, do you have anything to say about this thing?
Bubble Hearth.
Yeah, sure. Bubble Hearth. If Bolton could do it, he would. I'm just saying.
Yeah, he would. Well, I don't know if he'd Hearth. He would definitely bubble. I thought that Bubble Hearth was always like the biggest bitch move in PvP, where it's just like, yep, this asshole's dead. Bubble Hearth. Fine. So, what's your? Jesus.
All right. So my last card is one that I partially chose for the art because I think the art is just absolutely bananas and bonkers on it, but also because I think that this card is another one that on the surface doesn't have necessarily a huge wow factor, but actually is a massive just piece of the puzzle for what Vincent wants to do. Like I legitimately think like this card is going to be a staple and a veritable cog in the Vincent machine. So this is Funeral Moon. Again, art outstanding. Absolutely love it.
A+.
Can't wait to have it on like a playmat or all sorts of stuff. But Funeral Moon, it's a red pitch, 0 cost, but it has 3 block, which is nice. You may play this from your banished zone with no other like qualifications, just straight up you can play it from there. So A+ for effort there. Has Blood Debt, and then it simply says if a hero has lost health this turn, you may play this as though it were an instant. Create a rune chant token. Now, I know that a single rune chant token doesn't feel like a lot, but what you have to remember is with Vincent, your rune chants are also the way that you rune gate things in. So in many ways, this is like free pitching your resource to like pay for things, but also getting damage out of it, right? Like this is almost like pitch ramp, because you're going to banish something with Vincent. So you choose to banish this, and then you can just turn around and play it anyway as an instant and then set stuff up. And if you need to figure out a way to lose health, Vincent has that baked into her hero ability. But again, you don't have to lose health yourself. It's if any hero lost health. So you could also, swing with an attack with Go Again. If that hits, then you bring in the Funeral Moon, or you can just lose health of your own and then bring it in at the end of your turn to set up a future turn. It just does a lot for what Vincent wants to do. I love this card.
Yeah, this is an absolute banger for the Vincent suite. It's just, you're absolutely right. It is just a cost reduction mechanic stapled to a 0 cost action that you can play as an instant that also blocks for 3. The only thing that'd be better is if it had a blue pitch attached to it. That's literally the only other thing you can do with this card.
I think it could be Vincent. A little bit better if it made all non-basics mountains.
It kind of has that art, so it does look like Blood Moon, but it's definitely one of those where I don't know, like to me the glue cards for Vincent are super interesting because they do so much work.
Yeah,
and this is the topper for those types of things in my mind, because
this card is to Vincent what Seeds was to Chain, which is why this is a majestic that you can only run like 3 of, because I think they've learned their lesson, because it's literally that important. But the good news is you can also still run Seeds in Vincent.
You sure can, just in case you wanted to play Seeds, so you could then use Vincent's ability to pay for, to pay for your next rune chance doing damage, and then play Funeral Moon as an instant. So you have that sorts of rune chant there, and then also you already banished a card from your hand, which might have been Funeral Moon, to start your turn to make a rune chant. God, Jesus, it is just so beautiful. Everything about it. It's the wonders of all of the pain and suffering. Okay, I'm done being waxing poetic about this stuff, but actually I'm not, because now we go to my cards.
I was gonna say we get your 3 though, so
yes we do. So oddly enough, we do have both a Briar card and a host of Shiana cards in this set, but we've already kind of talked about those, so I didn't want to go back to the well. We're going to focus on Vincent. I honestly think that this is my favorite hero in Flesh and Blood. I am just going to be a Vincent person for as long as she's legal.
So what you're saying is
legal.
You've already bought 2 tickets to Iron Maiden, baby?
Oh, absolutely. I've seen Iron Maiden live. Come on.
I know, but I got Mikey with the sigh.
Yeah, you got him good. I mean, we're an ode to metal here, so we might as well. But this, again, this hero speaks to me on what levels and volumes, because the way that their cards are set up is brilliant. So the first thing I want to talk about is one of those glue cards. So we already talked about Funeral Moon. The other glue card I want to talk about is Envelop in Darkness. So this is a 1-cost rainbow pitch. So red, yellow, blue, block 2, doesn't matter. You really don't want to block with this if you don't have to. So this creates a Rune Chant token. Then the next attack action card you Rune Gate this turn gets +3, and this has Go Again stapled to it. Now, this does so fucking much, because if you banish a 2-cost Rune Gate card, and then you play one of these behind it, out of a 2-card hand, 3-card hand to start, 2-card hand to go, or 1 card in an arsenal, you then get to play the Rune Gate card, the 2-cost Rune Gate card with a plus attached to it, and you did it out of basically an out of nowhere hand. That's a real good feeling. And even if you don't have all of that set up, like, the odds are these are going to do work no matter what you do. Creating Rune Chants with Go Again is just going to be so important for this deck that I feel like, I don't know that you'd run the rainbow, but you probably definitely run the reds and blues of this card without a second thought. I do think it's probably that good. And these all kind of go together, so I do just want to plow through them, and then we can talk about the whole of Vincent's suite. The other one is Oblivion. This card is just dumb on so many fucking levels. It's a blue pitch instant, legendary Vincent specialization. You can only play this if you control exactly 6 Rune Chants. Not a problem. And it's create Nazareth, so sort of like Nazareth the band, the Soul Harrower token. And Nazareth the Soul Harrower, aside from being metal as all fuck, is a 6, is attacks for 6, 0-cost attack. When Nazareth hits a hero, banish a card from their soul. If a light card is banished this way, gain 1. So even if you're just attacking a non-light hero, it still just comes in for 6. And is
plus
wonderful.
The Rune Chants that you had.
So Oblivion's just going to be a fucking problem, I think, because, like I said, it's just so easy to get off. Like, it has the utility in it is too good. And yep, you heard what I said.
I'm just imagining Flake taking that in the future.
I mean, I don't stop and start my entire brain with what Flake might do with what I say, because if I did, I just wouldn't talk anymore. And that would make the podcast sort of pointless. Just
what he needs to do is make a Logan out of context bit.
He's already done it.
That's what he's been doing. Like, he's already done it.
Yeah, he's already being that fucking guy. And yeah, that's why we got to be a little cautious. Well, I'm not going to be. I'm just going to keep saying the same shit that I always say. It doesn't actually matter. But the other set of cards I want to talk about in this space are... so it's funny to me. Levia is based in 13s, and then Vincent is all 666. It's perfect flavor. I can't get enough of the little Easter eggy type shit that they do. But there is the widespread series of cards. I'm sure widespread will get Flake going too. But so we have, first off, is Widespread Annihilation, which is blue pitch, 6 attack, 3 block. This one's 4-cost Rune Gate. When Blood Debt, when the combat chain closes, each hero who has lost life this turn banishes a card from their hand. So absolutely brutal. That's just draw a card for the Rune Blade, and it injures the other one as long as they're not a deck that plays from the Banish Zone. There's Widespread Destruction, which is yellow pitch, 3-cost, 6 attack, 3 block, Rune Gate card. When the combat chain closes, each hero who has lost life this turn banishes a card from their arsenal. So just CNC them. Like, just get them good. Even if you have to banish a card from yours, it probably has Blood Debt. You kind of don't give a shit. You can probably just play it from your Banish Zone anyway. Totally fine. And bear in mind, you can actually just play these for their cost too. If you don't have them rune gated, the effect still is the same. And then there's Widespread Ruin, which this card is metal as fuck because there's a giant scythe involved. But this one is red pitch, 2 cost, 6 attack, 3 block with Rune Gate. When the combat chain closes, each hero who has lost life this turn banishes the top card of their deck. So you're drawing a card, most likely, and they are not most likely drawing a card. These are incredibly above rate pushed amazing cards. I can't say enough about them in that regard. So even like we were talking about, well, 4 for 6 is a good rate. 4 for 6 is great rate when it's free.
And pushed couldn't be Runeblade.
Couldn't be Runeblade. They know how to fair and balance a Runeblade better than anybody.
These are to Vincent what the original cycle was to Assassin when we first got that class, right? I think
Leave no witnesses, eradicate, surgical extraction. Yeah,
those 3. The only difference is that I can't play mine for free with Rune Chants.
You can't set up a Funeral Moon, Envelop in Darkness, play this thing for free, cack you for 9. What?
And mine all swing for
Energy
4.
potion.
Or actually widespread destruction if you have Envelop, because you can just be like, all right, I guess we'll Funeral Moon and then go ahead and play Envelop. That with the Envelop play something we banished to get a rune chant at the beginning of the turn, and then play Envelop, and we'll just widespread destruction for 9 and 3 rune chants.
Yeah,
fair and balanced, right?
Sounds
what could possibly go wrong?
Sounds like folk news to me.
Ban bracers.
Ban bracers, but do this shit.
Ban bracers.
Well, they get that the fucked up part of this all is that they actually just gave bracers to Runeblade.
I know,
because they have Grimoire of the Haunt, which is just a free arcane barrier with banish this thing to make an eloquence token to give my shit go again. Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
this is sort of stupid, but I don't know. Like I probably am way too excited, honestly, to be playing this class, because to me, I just read it and it's so good. Like,
it just looks fun.
It just looks fun as hell. You just get to do degenerate shit. And I really hope that it's balanced, because sometimes I just don't feel like it is balanced. I also laugh my ass off because I keep watching Mike try to adjust his camera, and every fucking time
it keeps flipping back, dude.
And I'm just like, bro, there's like a little clippy on the back. I'm pretty sure if you snap it down, you'll be fine.
There's also tape.
It's like boob tape, but for your camera.
Really
it's drifting.
It really wants us to see whatever's in his attic.
It's a great attic.
There's a ghost of whoever he killed and put the body in the attic, and it's trying to tell us, look in the attic.
Hold on. He didn't kill them.
So, funny story.
Shit.
Me, you killed somebody and kept them in the attic, and their ghost is trying to tell us. Mike, funny story.
When we bought this house, I went into the attic, right? There's a treasure chest in there with a lock.
Have you ever opened it?
No idea what's in
You've
this
never
thing.
opened it?
No, well, it took me a while to open it. Like I had to
cut the lock.
Finally got up there and cut it. And I opened it, and there was a can of tuna. And that's it.
So the ghost that is haunting you is actually a tuna. Just really pissed off.
It's the ska band Mephistopheles, and that's a real band. Look it up if you so wish. Which was a satanic ska band who covered the Bumblebee Tuna song. You see where I'm going here? And it's just a ritual to summon them that was happening up there, and they decided that that's too much power to one person to have, so they just locked it in a trunk.
It sounds like that band should have been named Mescaline, because one needs to be on it to follow that logic.
Do they? Because
No.
I've been on I've never been on mescaline in my life, but from what I've heard, those trips are not quite that intense. I guess moving on. We also got the Fabled. It is.
Oh, yeah, we didn't know what it was when we recorded.
It is Captain Mid.
It's not Mid.
Okay, I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to let you two have at it. Okay. So it is called Light of Soul. So it's already a piece of shit because it's a cop card. It's a yellow light gem. See my previous.
It's literally a badge.
Yeah, it's literally a badge. And the text is, when this is pitched, it's a resource gem. When this is pitched, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's yellow, you may put it in your hero's soul. Notice it doesn't say charge; it just says put. So, Derek, I want to hear your argument for why this isn't mid first.
This is, even without the word charge on it, still the most cost-effective way to put stuff in Bolton's soul, because it doesn't require a card from hand.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah, you still need cards in your soul in order to do some of his effects. And so, yes, you would prefer that it charged. Absolutely. But the fact that you're getting to do this for pitching and it doesn't come from hand is, I think, a pretty big deal for Bolton.
I think what you're saying is that you went home with the 4 from the bar because it was there. I have to use it. That's what it sounds like to me.
God. No,
what I'm saying is if the best you can do is said 4, you're happy. And if the best that Bolton can do to charge his soul without spending,
that's what we're calling it these days, charging your soul.
That's what I'm saying, sir.
But what you're saying, Charmer, is mid. It's actually below mid.
Yeah,
it's below rate.
but
it's relative, right? Mid, but good.
Mid is relative with both.
Are you?
Is what you're trying to say.
Are you used to ones?
Listen,
no, he's absolutely not.
Let me explain something to you, okay? There are numbered to 10 serialized cards that exist, and I think I'm DCing now. I hate it here.
After a brief interlude of fucked up again, we're back. So I actually had paused recording for 5 minutes while I could see Derek and hear him, because he looked like he had lost his internet connection, but I couldn't tell if he was playing a bit. Because this motherfucker, you can never believe anything that's happening. He could easily be sending me a text of just like, hey, I think my browser died, and just waiting to say, oh, nope, it worked the entire time, you fucking idiot. And so I just literally could not believe him. And
it was a little bit bizarre. I've been having a lot of internet issues lately, and for whatever reason, my recording session died. And then I was like, well, I think my internet died, so I'm texting Logan, but then out of the blue, I looked up and my symbol that normally pops up that yells at me when my internet's actually dead, it was still going strong, still fine. I was like, that's weird. So I did like a quick test, and my browser like loaded stuff. So I was like, oh, well, maybe my internet's fine. That's weird. Maybe it's just Zencaster. It turns out they could hear me the entire time. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing that I didn't immediately load Pornhub or something.
People pay extra for that, Mikey. I'm just saying. He's not a 4. He's better than the Light of Soul. Like, just saying.
So listen, this is what I was starting to say. Yeah. There are serialized to 10 hero cards in Dusk Till Dawn. However, they are also unattainable. So Logan, and rightfully so, has decided they do not exist. I have also decided they do not exist. So I have decided that good cards for Bolton don't exist. So this is the most attainable, and thus it's good. It's also not the worst Fable, in my opinion.
It's not the worst Fable. No. Like, this is not, like, I think Blood of the Drakai is probably still the worst Fable. But that one's...
Okay.
I mean, regardless. Yeah, I don't think this is good at all. I mean... I'm just underwhelmed. It's
a card for the cops. It's going to be good. Some way, somehow.
I will 1,000% agree with you that every Bolton player that I've seen talking about this has been going bonkers about how great it is in Bolton. So I can agree with you there. It has a home in a deck that is mid, but I don't know. Like I can't get behind it as anything other than a 4.
This card is mark my words. This card is going to show up on your Twitter feed because it shot an unarmed protester. All I'm saying.
As we hear like car alarms and shit going off because of all the fireworks that are going off around us, and there's been noise pollution throughout because of just everything happening outside of here. This is the most scuffed, fucked podcast that we've ever recorded by leaps and bounds, and I'm still going to produce it and put it out there because why wouldn't I?
Best ever,
exactly. We're gonna go ahead and ask this question again. I do recall the answer that you guys had, but I do want to talk about it again, and that's because I've seen a lot of people complaining, and that makes sense. Like it is the internet. That is something that people do on the internet and on a regular basis. But are the legendaries in this set underwhelming? Now I'm going to remind you what they are. It's Empyrean Rapture, Soulbound Resolve, Leviathan Redeemed, Scowling Nutsack, Iron Song Versus, Dyadic Carapace, Diadem of Dream State, and Crown of Providence. Now, I'm also just going to quickly point out that I think we can cross off a number of these having talked about them and where they belong. So specifically Soulbound Resolve, I'm not sold on it, but I can understand where that's or we haven't talked about that one yet, but we can. Leviathan Redeemed, we've talked about. And I know what the text of that card actually means. Scowling Nutsack, we also have talked about that and agreed that it's at least worth a slot in brute decks, if nothing else. Iron Song Versus, I think we talked about that, how it is a good slot for warriors not named Kasai. And then Crown of Providence, we already know is just the default headpiece of Flesh and Blood. It has been basically since it came out. So let's kind of go backwards a little bit and talk through some of these. Now, Empyrean Rapture is one of those like weird ones to me because it's on the surface fine. It's if a card with Herald in its name has been put into your hero soul during your turn, the first hero ability you activate this turn costs 2 resources less to activate. Then once per turn instant, this gets ward 1 until end of turn. So that's in case of Firebreak Glass thing. Now, talking about Empyrean Rapture specifically, I feel like this is just a Voltron card. This is just a piece of a puzzle. And I know that Derek pointed that out last time, but it was also something that I thought that made sense. But that doesn't feel legendary to me. What do you think in that regard?
I mean, I think that this card turns on almost like the entire new Prism archetype. Now, I still think there will be several ways to build Prism, and that won't necessarily be all in on this like Herald Figment thing. But I think that it's very hard to justify playing the Herald Figment combo and this new Prism without Rapture, because getting that just free 2 resources is massive. Like I get that it doesn't feel legendary, but I also get the feeling that people are just used to old Prism, and the old chess piece wasn't necessarily as big of a deal. Sometimes you ran Tunic. A lot of times Tunic was correct. And also they haven't had their hands on the new Prism to like feel the weight of it. But when I look at this, like this absolutely feels legendary to me. Like this feels more legendary to me than like Tectonic Plating does for a Guardian. I'll put it that way.
Okay, that's a lot. But I also just kind of realized, because when we first talked about this, we didn't have it. This actually does work favorably with Light of Soul. Because if you do have a Herald on top of your deck, it does turn on Empyrean Rapture with no effort. So that is something, I guess, but you'd already have to be pitching to pay for something else, which is probably a Herald, to be honest. So I don't know, like this is, and you need Heralds. You do get to go put, like, again, Prism Awakener of Soul also works well with the Fabled in that it, again, if you hit a Herald off of that, you turn on Prism too, so you get to search for a Figment. So you kind of get to do the whole thing. If the Fabled hits, it turns on every bit of Prism. So that's actually kind of fascinating in and of itself. Maybe that is less mid than I thought, but it's probably exactly as mid as I feel.
Yeah.
I mean,
no,
I don't want to keep beating this horse to death, but a lot of people thought Van Braces was mid, and I was a staunch supporter.
Fucking Glue Factory. That horse is ultra dead. Jesus Christ. I get it.
I like Rapture. Okay. Like I said, to me, this feels legendary to me. There are some others in this list that I do legitimately feel like are very good cards, but don't feel legendary.
Is one of them Soulbound Resolve?
No, I actually think Soulbound Resolve is still fine. For me, the one is that is like maybe the most poster childish is the Dyadic Carapace. I think this card is very good, but it doesn't feel legendary because it's just a pile of stats, period. Like that could have been a Majestic and I wouldn't have blinked. You know what I mean?
It is a pile of stats. I agree with you there.
I think it's a very good card. It doesn't.
It's AB2, Block 2, Temper, Chest. Right. But like this will find a home in every Runeblade's loadout every time that's not named Briar. So, and Briar, because Briar just would rather have the aggro.
When we recorded this podcast the first time, I also said that card is outstanding in Blitz. And so like even in Blitz, I think Briar runs it. Like that card, I know we don't talk about Blitz as a competitive format often, and it's usually the last thing people mention, but like Carapace is juiced in Blitz, in my opinion.
I think it's very good. It's definitely something that Viscera is going to run in Blitz. And it's probably something that Briar would consider in Blitz. It's not better than Husk for Vincent and Jane. So it would still be the thing you had in your board for the Wizard matchups. Instead of running Robe or whatever, you would just run this instead.
Right.
But at the same time, so like it's going to get played in every Runeblade board except for maybe CC Briar.
I think this card is also maybe under whelming on the surface.
We got buzzed because in. All right.
Yeah, I was gonna say we got buzzed in. I think this is mostly
it's my drive,
a side
man.
effect also of Runeblade has maybe the best wardrobe in Flesh and Blood. Like when you think about the
Shadow Runeblade specifically.
When you think about the different chests that are available to them, you've got Carapace, you've got Tunic, you've got Ironweave, you've now got this. You could run some other ones if you really wanted to as well. Like there's nobody with a better closet than Runeblades as far as I'm concerned.
And Shadow Runeblade specifically because they get Husk as well. Like So I feel like this one's on the border. I would also not blink if it was a Majestic, but I do feel like it is it as a legendary doesn't offend me. The one that kind of gets me is I don't think Diadem of Dream State feels legendary.
I want to dive into something a little bit bigger here. Now this is entirely speculation.
Tommy's not on this show.
I don't have any sort of like additional knowledge or whatever, but I can't help but look at something that's happening here, right? One of the things that we have criticized LSS for in the past, and when I say we, I mean the royal we, like we as the community, is the fact that many of these legendaries are priced very high and they make the accessibility, hard at times. Now, they've done a good job with like reprinting certain cards. Obviously, we know Crown of Providence is going to get its, Crown of Poverty version in the non-foil this time around. But we've kind of seen with the last couple of sets that they're not afraid to kind of like up the numbers because they're doing the cold foils or the chase ones now. Some of the rainbow foil ones are actually very accessible. And there's a part of me that thinks that in this set, we're going to have legendaries be a little bit more accessible than sets past. Now, hear me out. The reason that I believe this is because this is an absolute bonkers number of legendaries for a supplemental set. When you think about the history of Flesh and Blood, Crucible, right? If you don't remember, gang, had Shiana and then Tunic as the reprint. That's it. Then we want to go, okay, well, Everfest had Stalagmite and Silver Palms.
and
with
dull cap
as the reprint. Even when we go back to like Dynasty, right? That one started to give us some more, but we still had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 total in Dynasty. So the fact that we have as many legends as we do, and some of these kind of feel like they could have been Majestics in the past, like again, like if Carapace was in Crucible, would have been on the same tier as like Crater Fist, right? Like would have been a Majestic, easy peasy. I think that they want to increase legendaries per set, but potentially also make them a little bit easier to get, at least like not the cold foil ones, so that, you know, people are happy to open stuff. You kind of get that feel good experience, but they're also low cost and accessible. I hope that's the case. Again, I have no idea if that's going to be the end outcome, but I look at this and the thing that keeps jumping out at me is this is a lot of legendaries for a supplemental set, for a non-draftable set.
So I'm going to pivot onto something here a little bit that goes with set contents. Legendaries are 1 per 64 packs, so that is less than.
I mean, that's like less than what, 1 every 2 boxes, right?
1 every 2 boxes. 2 boxes would be 48 packs,
right?
So it's a little over. It's roughly 2 per case,
right? But I'm still not convinced. Here's my conspiracy theory, right? I think we had similar numbers technically for like Dynasty, but we all know that the Emperor was way printed.
Was overprinted. Yep, we know.
Right? Like we know that. So I think at least one of these legendaries, if not more, are going to get the Emperor treatment, and we're going to get more of them.
Potentially.
Because there's just so many for this to be a supplemental set.
So let's talk because we have the entire collector center for Dusk Till Dawn, which is something we normally don't have because normally we're not recording at a time we would have it. So there's a couple of interesting things here. One, the set is already listed as out of print. Now, I think that's because of the cold foil serialized sketch cards. They would have to print it all at once. That's the only way to make that work. They can't keep printing packs and then keep inserting that, you know, when you don't know how many.
Right. I agree.
As per usual, I do applaud LSS for their transparency. There's a lot of really interesting things in here. So first off, the 2 prisms are short printed. They're a 50% short print. Spoiled Skull is a 60% short print that does not have a rainbow foil. Vincent is short printed, 50% as well. Grimoire of the Haunt is short printed at 60% and does not have a rainbow foil. Oblivion is short printed at 60%.
Yeah, and these make sense because they're your specializations and stuff, right? Like this is supposed to be what happened to Regicide and why we had the weird surgical extraction.
Bastion of Unity, same story, 60%, but Decimator Great Axe isn't, just Bastion of Unity. And those are your short prints. So that's fascinating, like, honestly. So we have all the data in front of us to kind of like understand, okay, well, the heroes are short printed because they always are, because you don't want a bunch of majestic heroes because you don't need 4 of them. And then your legendaries are short printed. So this is sort of fascinating in and of itself. But I don't know. Like, for my value, I think the way that these are set up is going to make it so that we see more Marvels to go with them, with the legendaries as well.
Yeah, that could be as well. I know what the Collector Center says, and I know that LSS has always been incredibly transparent with us, but the Collector Center for Dynasty also doesn't say that Emperor was like printed more, but man, did it sure feel like everybody and their brother was opening a rainbow foil. Now, granted, the upper tiers, that's different, but like a rainbow foil Emperor felt as common as Majestics at times. And so
I saw
I don't know.
3 pulled out of a case.
Yeah, like,
so yeah, you're right. I saw a lot more of those, but I think that also could have been a collation issue. Who knows?
Yeah,
could have been. That's been a thing too. So we just don't. And the ones I saw were Belgian. Just saying.
Yeah.
But we know that there have been issues in the past with that. Mikey, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so. Thank you.
Well,
I think your conspiracy theory seems reasonable.
That's all I ever wanted was to have a reasonable conspiracy theory.
And I don't think, I think on a scale of Epstein to aliens, I think you're closer to Epstein.
I don't know how to take that. I never want to be closer to Epstein, like ever. Like I just don't. It's not on my to-do list. Oh my God. I'm ready to get out of here. We've talked enough, I think.
I think we have as well.
As per always, you can find us on Twitter at FleshPod. Link is in the show notes. You can also join our Discord if you want to chat at us. That link is also in the show notes. We also accept email submissions. If you have a question to send us via email, it's fleshandpod@gmail.com. Also, we have a Patreon. It is patreon.com/fleshandpod. There are some number of tiers. I never fucking remember the number that you can look at. But we're going to do a quick thank you to our associate producers, Andy, Kenny, and May, and our executive producers and up, which is C-Dubs, Josh, Lance Goodthrust, Matt Two Tokes. We're going to try this. Mike Popowich. I have no idea if I got there. Alex, Ed,
we covered this. Hold
Rich.
on. I know you're mid.
Yeah, this is -5.
We covered this the first time we recorded, and I just need to say that he literally just unsubscribed from our Patreon and signed up for Twitter Blue instead with that.
Well, I mean, that's unfortunate, but he already paid for this month, so I guess that's okay. Rich, Philip, Taylor, and Trevor. Mikey, where can they find you? Are you going to ever fire that podcast of yours back up that was so fucking good for one episode?
Eventually, but you can find me on Twitter at Nick Bolas Fab. I will be there, and you will occasionally see me scroll up on your feed before you get limited.
I have not been limited yet. Does that? What?
I've been limited one time.
What does that say about me? I guess.
Are you guys talking about like on Twitter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I get limited all the time, man.
Oh wait, is this still there?
I mean, as far as I know.
Oh, maybe I just look at Twitter less now because they're limiting my tweets.
Yeah, who knows? Whatever. Derek, where can they find you?
On Twitter, I'm at that Charmer because the people who run Twitter apparently suck and won't give me at Charmer despite my requests and owning charmer.com. And I'm probably limited as well. Pretty much everywhere else, I'm just Charmer. So just Charm3R on Twitch, on YouTube. Apparently, you can set your own domain to your user handle on Blue Sky. So shout out to Bryn when Twitter was failing. She gave me an invite to Blue Sky. So I am there now as
Still
well.
Waiting on one.
I am just at
Bryn, if you're listening, please.
Yeah, I'm at charmer.com there because you can just set a domain. So suck it, Twitter. I got it there. Anyway, yeah, pretty much just Charm3R anywhere, or Derek. If you search my first name, you'll get a bunch of stuff by Derek Robertson, great artist and co-creator of The Boys, and then eventually you'll find me
alongside Tan and Grace.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you can find me at Logan Peterson on Twitter. I'm also just the person behind all the Flesh and Pod social media, so that's still me. Bear in mind, any complaints will be submitted to Flesh and Pod Legal, which is a subsidiary of Black Hole Legal, which is still the trash can next to Jordan Kennedy's desk. This was a hard one to record, boys. I'm really hoping this works.
This was
fingers fucking crossed that we made this, but if that's, I'm hoping this works. But if not, I don't know. I'll
see you on the other side, gentlemen.
Yeah, have a good one, folks. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Happy 4th.